And usually when I say that, I get a better response, but I'm dealing with 5-year-olds and 9. Good morning, everyone. Let's try that again. Good morning. How are you? Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're at a very pivotal and exciting point in the building project. And I'm John Graziano. I'm the proud principal of Templeton Center School and Baldwinville Elementary School. I want to welcome you here today. It's a very exciting day. It's going to turn into a tour and a lunch and all sorts of good stuff. But I just wanted to take a moment to step back very briefly and say that the building committee in Templeton for the new elementary school, from my point of view, and I did a little bit of research, has been at least 31 years old. Okay. 31 years ago, they formed a committee to build a new elementary school. And about 10 years ago, because I know we have Kerry Kojal with us and Hank Mason's walking in, he doesn't...
Hank, you have to...
I'm going to give Hank the mic, he won't take it. But anyway, Kerry, it's at least been 10 years, right, since you've been on? Okay. So, when I came to town a little over a year and a half ago, we formed a new committee. In fact, in August of 2012, the committee got together again. So there's been several layers of this. And we're here today because we're at the design phase. We're just about at the design phase, which is a very exciting phase of a project that may go up or may go down. And you know what? That's okay. But if people make an educated and informed decision, I think good will come out of it. Having said that, we're going to go through a very brief presentation for you. We're going to answer questions that you have. And please understand that this is a very small piece to a very large piece of the pie. Does that make sense? Okay, no more jokes? Okay, let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce Ruth Miller, Superintendent of Schools, who's going to give you an overview of where we're at this point. Good morning.
Thank you very much. So, I'm going to walk you through a PowerPoint presentation. It's very brief, just kind of hitting some of the highlights of the building. Hopefully our, the mic? Yeah. Okay. Well, normally it would have to be on. Can you help me, Marsh? Hold on. Got it. Now, can you hear me? Okay, great. So, a very brief PowerPoint presentation, kind of going over some of the issues that I think you've already heard about. Jonathan Winokur, who is our owner's project manager, is due to be here. He is driving from the Boston area, so clearly he's a little late, but we'll get started. But he hopefully will be here to answer some of your questions, and also Bill Claybaugh, our facilities manager, who has been working on this project since way back when the very first feasibility study money was actually raised. So he will also be here to answer some of those more technical questions about the building that I don't necessarily have. So having said that, okay, some of our current conditions are the building's over 90 years old. That in itself isn't a bad thing, but because of its age, it really does create challenges for having a flexible education system that you need in the 21st century. So what they built schools for in 90 years ago is a very different place than what we would actually design in the new elementary school if it gets passed. Capital repairs are needed. It's not to anybody's fault, but over time, the actual upkeep of the buildings and the facade has deteriorated. And there are many things that need to be done. And those expenses, since they're capital, would fall on the town of Templeton. And so we would have to work collaboratively with them. And I know that this year they had a vigorous capital planning committee. And we have over $200,000 in capital repairs that we've recommended. I don't know if they will get moved forward or not, but that is the process that you use for capital repairs. It's not handicapped accessible, which has presented lots of challenges. Many of our children that have wheelchairs end up having to stay in Phillipston because it is handicap accessible, and they're not allowed to come and access their school and be with their neighbors and their friends. Technology's lacking. I know it seems like, we should be able to just fix the technology, but because of the building construction and the walls, it's absolutely impossible in some instances to get the wires through, and the wireless connection, because of the walls, it just doesn't work. We have tried. And unfortunately, the new broadband that's coming into town, when Templeton filled out the survey as to what buildings would get that high-speed internet, I don't know how it happened, but Baldwinville Elementary School was left off the list. So now we're struggling, our technology department is struggling to do a workaround to that to try to get the broadband that's necessary. And speed is important, especially when you're thinking about graphics and other things that come through with multiple computers being on at one time. There's no library in Baldwinville, and I don't think you can really call the room that they have set up a library at Templeton Center. There's a limited kitchen, and I say limited because there is a kitchen in Baldwinville, but you can't cook anything in it. And there's no playing fields. I think that, TC has a big field for the kids to run around in, but in Baldwinville, there's a paved lot there for the kids to go out and play. Our current academic challenges. We currently have 4 kindergarten classes in Templeton Center. The enrollment projections of the kids coming in, we are going to continue to need those 4 classrooms. So we are going to need an additional grade 1 for that building. So it looks like we're going to try to take probably the teacher's cafeteria or that library and turn that into a first grade classroom. We're not quite sure how we're going to work that out. We're still working with the school committee to make those decisions. But if we move them up, we'll have 27 students in a first grade classroom, which is high when they're trying to read. In addition, do we, hire paraprofessionals to go in? So it's a little tricky. It's a challenge that we're facing right now. Art and music share the cafeteria at TC for their instruction. Music and art at BES have the same classroom. The gym at TC is a small room in the back, and it's not a gym in any stretch of the imagination. It's a very small room, and the kids run around, and it's really not the best environment. It's not really all that safe, too, when you're talking having 20 to 23 kids in that room participating in gym. We have no space for special education services. OT and PT, which are services that kids would get, there's really no good space for them to have that. And so right now, we're looking at that library space is where they currently do those services, deliver those services. And in this paved parking lot, I already covered that. Challenges for the student. A student with a broken leg just came back to Baldwinville Elementary School. His classroom was on the 3rd floor, and he could not access that. He has crutches, but he's actually, because his cast is all the way up to his hip, he really is in a wheelchair all day. So this young man had to change classes because of his broken leg, and he had to go enter into a new 3rd grade classroom that's on the bottom floor. He comes in through the art room, and then he can get to his classroom. At lunchtime, he needs to go out back through the art room, go outside, down an area that's not in very good shape for a wheelchair, and come back into the building to go to lunch. So that's just one challenge. The extended day program is at the middle school for our elementary school kids. The reason for that was there was a young child that was in a wheelchair, and she was going to the whole extended day for just socialization and fun, and it became so stressful for her when we were at Baldwinville because she couldn't go and be with all the other kids as they moved around in the building. She was really kind of stuck in one room that her parents said they were going to take her out. And that didn't really seem to be an option for me, so we moved the program up to the middle school, and all the kids have to be bused because we can't accommodate all of our children. And then I already covered the wireless access. It's very difficult to get the technology in the school. Repairing the buildings is an option. East Templeton is an excellent example of the complications that there are to trying to just fix these buildings and make them usable. Some repairs will be necessary to move, like the electrical. If you want to redo the whole electrical, you want to update the plumbing, if there's major repairs, then we are going to have to move the kids out of those buildings, put them somewhere, I'm not quite sure where, to accommodate those kinds of repairs. And so when you redo the whole electrical, which is the insurance company has recommended to the town of Templeton, that's just not an easy fix, and it's expensive. Repairs will not make the building handicapped accessible. We will not be able to meet the needs of our students, all of them. And we wouldn't be able to do things like create a gym, get a kitchen that can actually cook. I mean, the list of that, extra rooms for the special ed, for OT and PT, for more classrooms as we grow as a town and have more kids coming, we can't fix that. Okay? So even if you update the buildings, you're not going to get those additional spaces that are needed. So we're trying to offset the impact of the design phase through donations. There's a handout that has a letter that I've given out. We have people that are working on some larger corporation donations. We have gotten some donations already in, which is a good thing. There's, people are giving what they can, but we're going beyond the community to try to get some large donors to help offset the $200,000 of this feasibility study. We can do this, but we all have to work together to make this possible. So that's what I had for a presentation. And now that our OPM is not here, Bill, would you mind walking them through briefly the schematic design phase and what we're actually raising the $500,000 for?
Schematic design.
Thank you.
Currently, we have a team of people, engineers, that have gone and done environmental studies. This is at the site, and geotech work still remains to be finished at the site to determine where a school siting, a physical building would take place. I'm just getting my acronyms right, through the Department of Capital Asset Management, we have already had some financial help and the actual physical work to see if it was feasible to put a school from their viewpoint, since they would be funding such an endeavor in partnership with the state and the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Those studies are in place, and they indicate that we do have a viable site. The site is flexible in its scope. We haven't chosen exactly where it's going to be. The amount of acreage is indeterminate, but we have ideas along those scales. To continue along the feasibility study, however, gives us more finite information, brings us up to an actual architectural rendering, which could be a 3D model that the public can look at and say, okay, it fits, it's viable, I can see what we're trying to do, and at this point, given all that information from an informed source, through the feasibility study, I as a voter can make a decision, an informed decision, which is what the feasibility study actually does. It gives the public an informed decision. We work on our ed plans to come up with more information in the feasibility study so that it definitely serves our individual educational need. So the esoteric meets the physical, meets the design at the end of the feasibility study, so the voter can make an informed decision. You think that covers it?
Good job.
Yes, excellent.
Questions, comments, reactions, concerns?
Harry, do you want to say something?
Anybody have any questions?
You're so good, though.
Comments? Way in the back. Hi, Diane.
Hi, everybody.
on.
Could you explain a little bit more about why you are taking donations and how that impacts our town. I think that that's important about the debt exclusion. And so do you mind explaining that to people?
So the question is, why are we taking donations and what's the purpose of that? Let's back up to the total figure is $500,000. The state reimbursement is 60% of that. So that means the Templeton's cost is $200,000. Even though that cost may seem reasonable to some, we feel obligated to raise money to offset that cost so that people realize that we're in this with you. And it also signals the community members and the townsfolk that people do care and support the project. So there's two reasons. There's the tax reason, because money's important, but also there's this we're all in this together reason. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we started it and we didn't have to fund it? We said it's already funded. That's a great thing, because the town is going to build a building at some point. Why not now? Other questions, comments, reactions, concerns?
So after this first cost here, what's going to be the total cost of build? Is it all being completely reimbursed by the state, or what's the total long-term cost?
We don't know the total cost yet, but if MSBA is with us, and we believe they will be as long as we continue down this path, they're going to reimburse us 60% of X, whatever that is, 2/3.
So no studies are done on how much it would even cost, a guesstimate on the, what?
Well, we have a general idea about, sir, about what it costs to build a building today. We have a general idea, anywhere from 30 to 130 million. Okay?
And what's the difference between?
Can I just answer that?
Yeah.
That's the purpose of this next phase. The schematic design phase is to actually understand before we put before the voters, the actual dollar amount that it's going to cost. That's the purpose of this. Until we design the building, until we understand what needs to go into it, we can't answer that. We can't give you a number, because we could be completely wrong. That's the purpose of this phase, and that's why MSBA makes us go through this process so that nobody's blindsided at the end with having a much larger sticker price than is reasonable for what we are putting forward.
So, plan on doing a tour to find all these little things that go on in the school. So did you also take a look at what it would be cost to rehab and get, what the total cost of doing a rehab in all the schools would be? And I'm not sure what area they have, how much land they have there. And, you know, was it more than just one person to go out? Did you get like bids and so forth to get an idea what that cost would be? Versus, you know, to me, when I hear, you know, you're talking 130 million. If they take 60%, you're talking 50 million maybe to the town.
That's why I want to answer this question.
Right?
May I answer
$50
your
million
first question,
to me
sir?
sound like you could rehab.
May I answer your
these
first
schools with
question,
half of
sir?
that. Yep.
Let me do that.
I was just
okay?
finishing mine. Yeah, that's why.
Well, but I'd like to get the first one answered, and then you can, okay, because I don't want to go around the road that I can't
Right.
give you any answers, okay?
Yeah.
Because we're here very transparent,
Right.
okay? When I said 30 to 130, I said that for a particular reason, because you will find the design of this building to have no frills, okay? It will give you a very efficient, well-run, clean building with a gym, a cafeteria, internet, parking, safety, security, a wonderful roof, a wonderful set of new furniture, hopefully. However, it's not going to have a swimming pool. It's not going to have avant-garde tennis courts. It's not going to have the things that schools in other communities may have in other states, what have you. It's a solid New England-based school, so that's going to be the low end of that 30 to 130 range. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The second part of your question is, we're gathering that information, okay, but we don't have all that information yet as far as what the complete rehab will be. But the analogy that I like to use is the jalopy and the new car. Not a Cadillac, but a Ford. Do you see what I'm saying? So do you put the money into the jalopy when you know that the jalopy is beyond? And please come today, because I think it will be an eye-opening experience for that. Or do you buy a new Ford? It's not a Cadillac, may not have a GPS, you know, not a fancy radio, but a good, solid vehicle. Does that make sense, sir?
Yeah, but, you
I'm not
know,
asking
using your
you to agree.
analogy, they've taken old cars down, they rehab them like they're I'm just saying.
But do you drive those cars cross-country? No, you don't. You bring them out on the parades on
There's a new
Sunday.
engine in them and everything else, and what they can do nowadays, I'm just saying. You're using your
Exactly,
analogy.
of course, of course. And you know what, I'm not here to convince you, I'm here to give you two perspectives, the facts as we know them, and the passion behind what's needed for these children. Other questions, comments, Mrs. Sullivan?
Just to that point, my understanding is, I have 3 children, none of them which will actually benefit from the new school being built, and my son actually is the one who broke his leg. So we have lived through Templeton Center, East Templeton, and Baldwinville Elementary. My understanding is, if you go to revamp East Templeton, they are now no longer grandfathered in, and so now you need to meet the requirements of handicap, all the handicap accessible codes. There's asbestos, lead paint. I happen to work somewhere where we're removing asbestos. You're talking hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars to have people come in, take a look at it, assess it. You're talking millions of dollars to renovate something and get nothing new in return. I don't think that this new school, I know you don't want to put a number on it, but I understand your point. You don't want to spend $80 million on an elementary school. Back when I was looking at this town, the number was roughly around $35 million, and the state would reimburse 60%. Now people are trying to, the state had to hold back and not reimburse anybody for 7 years, and they had to go to the state and look and put the worst schools on the list. Our school made it. When I lived in Shirley prior to this, we built a new school, the state was reimbursing with 80%. Now we're on the list. If we don't build one now, our 60% is gone. A friend of mine lives in another town in the state of Massachusetts, and now the state is only reimbursing at 40%. I think the point is that eventually we're going to need a new school. These Band-Aids that we keep putting on, all of these things, the roof that fell in my kindergarten's classroom, that we had to repair a roof and ship everyone to Templeton, the radiator that kept streaming and flooding my daughter's second grade classroom, those Band-Aids can no longer adhere. We need to invest in the future. I think we just keep living paycheck to paycheck, so to speak, and we're going down this path that we can't come out of. I think you need to invest in the future and stop being stagnant. We're just wasting money away. And I think you just want to say, I don't think the school is going to cost 60, 70 million. I would assume it would be between 30 and 40. But
Or it could be less, or it could be less.
Or it could be less. But I think the point you should understand is that if you do not build it, the state has been very patient with us. I have seen many towns that have been on the list when we were on the list, and their schools are built. They're done. We haven't even started. This is the end for us. So if we don't do it, we'll lose the money.
Mrs. Triple?
Yes, even if you rehab the building and you had all of these areas fixed, you still couldn't run many of the educational programs that are required by the state of Massachusetts for your children to be competitive in the building that you currently have for structure and size. The Common Core curriculum, the PARC testing, even the MCAS testing is asking for different type of project-based education. We're asking children to be able to think critically. In order to do so, you have to manipulate items. Your ability to use current research. The problem is that in the structure of your building, you will have a very difficult time to accomplish the goals of our educational system in our proud state of Massachusetts for education. This will allow your children, the children in my community, to be competitive, to enter a middle school and a high school and apply to colleges with a background that allows them to compete.
Thank you.
This is a very important piece.
Questions, other comments, reactions? Yes, sir.
Just a small comment. Keep in mind, you spend $10, $15 million and completely refurbish all the new schools, all the old schools, and you still have a 90-year-old school when you're done. It's just going to go on from there. So that's pouring money down the hole.
And can I just make one comment to that, because you made me, in your other role, made me think of that. Last year, we had a teacher that became very ill, and she happened to be on the 3rd floor of Baltimoreville Elementary School. Our school nurse rushed up to her and forgot her cell phone on the desk. She got her in a room. There was no way to contact 911. She had to go back downstairs, get her cell phone to call, and go back up. Once the fire department got there, and I think the chief's here, he can attest to this, they had a lot of difficulty getting, is it called a gurney, up the stairs, and to try to get her out of the building. Would you say that's an accurate?
It's difficult getting to the nurse's office.
Say that again?
It is difficult getting to the nurse's office.
And also to get up the stairs with a regular gurney, to get them down because of the circular nature. So those are the kind of things that we live with every day, and we work around it, but to fix these buildings is not going to fix that. It's not going to make that little boy with a broken leg be able to get up the stairs any easier. You can't put an elevator in those buildings. Sorry, so I just digressed a little bit, but you made me think of
Mrs.
that.
Benoit?
After getting some information more recently from your building group and building committee, I took it upon myself to go onto the MSBA website. What I got the sense from the information I got there was this is very reasonable. This is not like highfalutin building. This is affordability. They really, really stress that this is, the adequacy of learning environments. Not that we're going to be like state-of-the-art, best elementary school in the world. They really look at affordability, they look at the community, and really, really reasonable, smart, long-term planning. So I would recommend you going onto their website and getting information directly.
In fact,
So-
speaking to that, when, prior to the new MSBA, the reason they restructured everything is because of, I think it was the town of Newton, built this really huge, unbelievably expensive high school, and they had to pay the percentage of it, and they said, time out. We aren't doing this anymore. We're going to have more control because we don't want these outrageously high-priced buildings to be, that we don't want to be part of that. We want to be part of helping people build reasonable buildings that the communities can afford. So the whole structure of MSBA changed after that outrageous building.
There's a gentleman in the back. I'm going to come to sir, but I want to hear from everybody.
Oh, no.
Then I bet your question's going to be answered, but I may not convince you, and I'm not here to convince you. Fair enough? Thank you, and thank you. Sir?
Just expanding on things that people have already said. I'm a licensed electrician. I've been working on, rehab projects and brand new construction projects and things like that for a number of years. And the one thing that you see consistently when you go into a rehab project is projects going over budget because you're planning on taking the wall down because you just have to fix a leaky pipe, and then there's 10 other things inside that wall that have to get fixed. And as people have already said, you spend all this money to put the Band-Aids on the old schools. They're still not up to speed with technology and handicap accessible, things like that. So even if we had an estimate that said $10 million to completely rehab Baltimoreville and Templeton Center, you have to take the students out of the schools and put them typically in those temporary trailers, classrooms, and that could take an entire year or more. Your project's going to go way over budget. You're going to spend almost as much on a rehab project on these old schools as you would on a new school. I'm sorry, one more thing. About 12, 13 years ago, the high school that I went to was built brand new. Top of the line, TVs in every classroom, TV studio. We had a photograph, developing studio and everything else. $33 million. And that was top of the line. Granted, it was 12, 13 years ago, but that's what you can get for short money.
Thank you for your thoughtfulness. Mr. Mason?
The other thing is the state won't reimburse any of the rehab costs for the schools. They're only going to do it for the schools.
So what you're saying is the 2/3 that we're supposed to get, we would get if we were doing a rehab. So if it was 10 million, and someone picked the figure, I'm not saying the figure, so don't hold me to that, but it would be 10 million that we would pay. Thank you. Mr. McEwen?
My name is Gary McEwen. I promised my wife years ago that I would not speak in public anymore because I was getting...
Why don't you listen to her?
She's retired, she's not here. And my time is limited. So I would stop. My recommendation would be, as a teacher, as a coach, as a class advisor, I would stop thinking in terms of cost of a building, but investing in a child. You are going to create a building that is uniform. You're not fragmented. You're so fragmented. You've got Templeton, TC, ET. We interviewed children, students, to do a promo for Ms. Miller in regards to your experience and Templeton Center in Baldwin. And one thing that came out loud and clear is they wish they were in one building. That I'm from Templeton. The pride, the collective responsibility, the advantage of teachers collaborating in one building, the philosophy, the values, the character of your leadership, your administration. Don't look at it as cost to a building. Look at it as investing into your future, into a child, because that's what did it here. That's what made the override happen here, is looking at it as a long-term investment, high school, middle school, the pride, the tradition, the values that a senior gives to a seventh grader, the peer mediation, the collaboration, the excitement, the enthusiasm of being in one building. You can have that when you create one building. K through 5, smaller classrooms here in the middle school. And my experience with teaching and coaching is if you can get pride, communication, collective responsibility, trust happening in a team or a class or a building, you're on your way. You're on your way. It's amazing what the teachers are being able to do, and administration to do, being so fragmented. Imagine if you came from one place, your hometown, Templeton. That's what I would recommend you looking for. We had a theme, a dream with a deadline. You have a deadline. We had a deadline back when we built these two schools to get 80%, and they did. What's more important 100 years from now? How many cars you got in your driveway? You know, how much you make? Or did you make a difference in a child's life? And that's an easy answer. It's easy. Invest in your kids. And the best thing you can do right now in an information society where they have to be not just prepared for an industrial, post-industrial job workshop. You have to be ready for a world market, a global market. Baldwinville, Templeton Center, ET is not going to do it for your kids. New building will. State-of-the-art, prepared for these kids for the future in an information society, and give them a chance. They're making it already, but give them more of a chance with that.
Thank you very much.
Did I get in trouble? No one's going to write me up?
No,
thanks.
we won't tell your wife that.
When you talk about the amount of kids that are coming into kindergarten, first grade and whatnot, it's 27, you're going to need another teacher and whatnot in the other school. Where is that safe? What is the building, you know, how many people can be in that building at once? Is that safe? And is that putting other kids at danger if you have too many kids in one building?
It is safe. I actually went to the town building inspector to ensure that we would not be breaking any codes of the town. And unfortunately, because it's not academically good, but it is not a safety issue. We can get the students out of that building, even if we, adding one teacher, I mean, the kids are still going to come in. But we have not broken any building codes. We can put 27 in a classroom if we want, and they can get out safely. So that does not make it a safety issue. It does make it a huge academic issue. There's a difference there.
Has anybody not spoken that would like to speak?
Dave Bramhall.
Dave, please, sorry.
When those schools were built, it was the concept of neighborhood schools and kids walk to school, or a vast majority of them. Have you computed the additional cost of transportation to a centrally located school on that highway?
It actually, I haven't fixed the cost, but it will I think it will actually be better because of its proximity toward Phillipston, not necessarily because we're not going to go to down from 2 buildings down to 1, because when I redid the buses in the last couple of years, and got rid of free buses, the ride's a little bit longer for kids, but it did take care of that economic advantage. So I'd have to say no, there isn't necessarily an economic advantage from a busing perspective. However, there may be a little edge because of the proximity to Phillipston, but there are tons of other advantages as far as we would have a really efficient, energy efficient building, which none of the buildings are energy efficient. I'm sure most of you have seen the video clip of it was snowing inside the building with the windows shut the other day. So from that perspective, there are some savings.
Anyone else that has, almost there, sir? Anyone else that would like to speak? We're going to come full circle. Okay.
I just want you to understand, I would like to see the school happen. I have 2 young kids.
I'd like to hear
One
that.
of them's in kindergarten, the
Thank
other
you
one's
for
3 and a
saying
half. I've just set roofs here, right, 5 years ago. I'm in the high-tech industry, and I'm a very data-driven person. All I'm trying to do is get the information to find out if the town is doing its proper research, and so that I can understand. One of the reasons why I moved here in 2009 was because it had one of the lowest tax rates it is no longer, but I've seen my tax rates and my expenses go through the roof, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on in this town the last 5 years since I moved here, right? My wife has been dealing with a lot of this. Now, my first meeting I came to the other day, I don't understand all of everything that's going on. That's why I'm asking these questions. I don't want people to get defensive when I ask this. I'm just trying to do it so that I can better understand, and maybe I can help in some manner, right? Because, so that's the way I'm taking a look at it, right? So, another thing, excuse me?
Can I address that, your concern?
Yes, as long as I can have one more follow-up after,
Go
go right
ahead.
ahead.
I think what people are missing is, yes, the school's costing more every year. It is absolutely more expensive, but the thing, there's so many costs that we have no control over. Our special education costs, they go up at a drop of a hat. They've gone up at least 5%. Don't forget that 2.5% is the cap. Well, special ed goes up. Last year, just the health insurance we have to pay on retirees went up 13%. Our other health care costs have gone up between 4 and 5% annually. Those are all fixed costs we have no control over. No control. So I understand why you're concerned, but this is not a Templeton issue. This is a statewide issue. It absolutely is. And unfortunately, some of the richer communities inside that 128 belt, they have the means to just throw more money at their schools and at their towns. Unfortunately, Templeton and Phillipston have to make real hard choices, and a lot of times they pick the school over the town, and then we had the recession. So it's not that we want to be here asking for more. We try to be really fiscally conservative, and I know people don't believe that, but we really do so much with so much less. And North Central Mass is shortchanged by the state of Massachusetts because we're small. We don't get the attention that the Worcesters, the Springfields, the Boston get. So I totally agree with you. I get it, but what I want you to understand is so many of those costs completely out of our control.
I understand. Okay, so you must have some idea on some of these costs increase. So basically what I'm trying to understand, okay, you have some idea of range of what it's going to cost for the school, all right? We probably have a time frame, if everything goes well through that time, to get the end of when the school's completely built and kids are in it, right? So you have a low end and a high end. Have we put budgets together, or how you're going to handle the town budget through that time to handle all those expenses so they can be shared to the town?
Absolutely
right?
not. And
So this is what I want to get to, because
sir.
I don't want you to come back again, all of a sudden it costs, it doesn't seem like you're being fair or straight with the townspeople when,
You're not
we
being
need this
fair right
6:30.
now. Let me answer your question. We're the school, sir. We're the school. We are not the town.
I
We don't
understand.
control the town. We don't set the tax rate. And the reason why we avoid saying figures publicly is because we cannot. We will be, let me finish please, we would be drawn, quartered, and crucified, if you will, if we come out and say it's going to cost $29,000, and the next day we find out it's going to cost $33,000. We can't do that.
It's a game.
Let me finish though, please. We can't do that. But we will be able to do it, as Superintendent Miller said, when we get to that phase, which is what we're trying to do today. So all your questions need to be answered. And I am glad you appreciate the project. But if you're patient in the timing of that, then you'll get everything answered.
Dr. Graziano?
I'm not asking for exact numbers. What I'm
But you're asking for a ballpark that I
Everything.
can't give you.
No, it's.
I can't.
Would
Please.
like to speak.
Yeah, so I have been on this project for a long time. And I'm not gonna have a child probably that even makes steps foot into the brand new school. Never. But I'm still on this committee, and I'm gonna be on this committee until this town gets a new school. I 100% appreciate you asking those questions, because the questions need to be asked. Unfortunately, we don't have all those answers because of the steps that we need to take with the MSBA. If we give you a figure, it might not be
I'm not
accurate.
saying-
No, and I 100%
I'm not
agree, I
asking
know.
for a figure.
Not a figure. But what I want to tell you is we just want to create a school that's going to be effective, efficient for the students. We don't want those bells and whistles. So I'm going to tell you, I live in this town, I grew up in this town. My husband grew up in this town. And we just want a school, our kids won't go to it, but a school that is going to be safe for the children of Templeton. And being on this committee, I'm going to make sure that it happens. I don't want the bells and whistles. I just want to make sure that we can keep it at the low end for the people of this town. So listening to what you have to say and what other townspeople are saying, as we move forward with this project, on this committee, what I strongly believe in is to make sure I keep it at that low end for people like you and the other people in this town. Because I know there's never going to be a good time when we have the money to pay for a new school, and I know that, and I just want to make sure that we can get this new school, but as affordable as possible for the people of Templeton. And so, I will, as we continue to go through this process, I'll remember the comments that you've made and take it with me for each meeting that we go to. I can't even tell you how much the MSBA has bent over backwards for us. We've gone through this pipeline for quite a long time. They have been willing to X us out of this project several times, and they know how desperately we need this new school. We are critical in terms of their listing of things, of needing a new school, and there have been criteria that we haven't met, and they have then come back to us and said, okay, we'll give you another chance. We'll give you another chance, because they want us to get this new school. We've had people that have cut money out of what we should be paying them and what they rightfully deserve, because they're working for us because they know that this town needs this school so bad. And I can't even tell you, in talking about the not having technology, with the new testing that's coming out with the park, the third graders needed to be bused up here to the middle school. I have a third grader. I can't tell you how anxious and how nervous she was that day about having to come up here to take a test. That test isn't going to go away, and they're not going to be able to take it in their classroom and in their learning environment where they're comfortable. She was so scared, she was crying, she was upset, and that's not okay with me. That shouldn't be okay with anybody in this town, that kids are so nervous because they can't stay in their own classroom to do something. She had to be bussed up here. That was just for a practice run. The test isn't until April, so now she's going all the time. When am I going to have to take that test again? When am I going to have to go up to that school? You come up here, and you have these little kids that are sitting at middle school's tables and computers, and I can just picture that visual of, these little kids that are in these chairs with these computers up here. It was so intimidating. So that's just one factor for why, the technology piece, just like everything, education evolves, and there's always something new that's happening. And so, I'm a school teacher as well. I could easily take my children to the town where I live, where I work in. But I believe in these teachers. I had Mr. McEwen as a teacher, I had Mrs. Triple as a teacher, and the educators in the school are phenomenal. I wouldn't want my children having any other teacher than the ones that are in this town. But I just want to provide a classroom that's safe, where I'm not worrying about a ceiling falling on my kindergartner. And, thanks to Mr. Clayball and his team as well, they keep making these Band-Aids work, but there's only a amount of time before these Band-Aids aren't working anymore. And I don't want the safety of my kids or any of the kids in Templeton, God forbid anything serious ever happens to these children. Because the town of Templeton, we didn't do our part to provide a safe learning environment for our kids. So just so you know, along the way, I will, keep reminding the committee and everybody involved with this project, we got to keep it affordable for the people of town.
The main thing, I know, I don't think people are gonna hold you accountable. I know you're saying we don't have the numbers, we don't have the numbers, right? It's data gathering. As long as you present it as, this is the data we have at this point, and you're not saying that this is what it's gonna cost so that somebody comes back. I understand, where I work, everything I do has never been done before. I'm working 3 years ahead of you. We base everything on data, head count, efficiencies, and so forth. And you have this here, and you try to figure out
We tried to get a
the
number
range.
from
You know
Mr.
what I'm
Wade for
saying?
last week.
Yeah.
He didn't have
He's
a
not
number
gonna
for
do
us.
it.
But you
Let
have the
me
past
tell-
to work
we have to
off
close
of, you
this
know what I
because
mean?
we have to kind of finish this because
Right.
we have another meeting, but let me tell you this, and it's what I've always done. When we have the information, when we have credible information, we get that information out. We don't hold anything. All these questions that you're asking, we will find answers to, and we will get the answers, but we're not going to give them prematurely and then have mistrust. When we say something, it's real, and we've been like that since I got here. And I promise you, we will have the information. We will have all the building committee meetings on tape so that you can watch them at home. And we will ask these tough questions to our OPM, who you've hired to get us these answers. And we will. We just don't have them now. What we have now is what's in front of us, the schematic design. That process is going to get you all those answers you want, and as it unfolds, we'll give that information readily. We're just not gonna give answers we're not sure of. So that, we
Having said
want to
that,
close it up.
yes,
And I want to
yes,
thank
thank you. I want to
Terry
thank everyone.
Koschel.
Yes.
That was amazing, and that's how the
amazing.
parents feel.
We have another meeting in 3 minutes, and so I just want to get to, I know you had your hand up, and then I'm going to go right in, and then we'll
Just really quick.
Please.
What is the time frame? Assuming this gets passed and we get the funding, how quickly will it take the schematic phase to be completed and numbers be available so that the next step can go? Are we talking a year?
It's not a really good answer to that question. Feasibility study will be put in this summer. That's it. We have the money to complete that. What happens is then MSBA looks at that and says, okay, are you going to be new design, new build, or will you fit into a model school? If you're new design, new build, you're looking at 9 to 10 months. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Claiborne. If you're doing a model school, the structure's there. You're working with the people that already had architect that, so some months come off of that. So at the end, we're talking maybe after this summer, another 10 months. On the worst scenario, and a little bit shorter, we don't have control whether we get into the model school. So that's why it's just not an easy answer to say, well, it's going to be 10 months, 12 months. So it hinges on, Hank probably wants to clear that.
It'll probably be a year from now that if everything goes to plan, that we present a proposal to the town to vote on for a new school. It'll take about a year if everything goes
Okay.
on plan.
Okay, last word, Ms. Triflo.
Yes, I appreciate, when people answered your questions, I saw you taking notes on a notebook, and obviously you're gonna follow through with checking them out. That's what we need in the town of Templeton, in our school district, are people who come out and ask questions. You heard a lot of passion, that's what you want from your leaders, the passion. Now you have statements that you can go back and check and share with your community members, question us, and get it back. And I personally thank you for coming and it's just, when you get an answer, you're getting a lot of passion with it, and that's rightfully so. But thank you for coming. Thank you for coming and asking those questions and following up, teacher.
Thank you all very much for coming. We're going to take 30 seconds to switch from one meeting to another. So thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.